People always say that you have to have money to make money, and that there's an extraordinary level of sacrifice on the road to success. So how is it that investors like us who didn't start out with much money and who don't rely on banks and credit, how is it that we can increase our income and build our wealth in a way that doesn't require us replacing one full-time job with another while still enjoying the things in life that matter most to us? That has always been the big question, and this podcast reveals the answers. I am Carrie Lake, and this is the Investor Warrior. Hey guys, welcome to the show today. Happy Wednesday. I have on the show with me Shannon Burmeister. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on today. You guys, I met Shannon just a little while ago at an event that we did, that we went to in Tucson. And Shannon, you were a teaching assistant there. And I instantly fell in love with you and your story. And I'm excited for you to come on because I think that your story, a lot of people will relate to it because you didn't start out in real estate. You had no knowledge of real estate. Oh, yeah. And things have moved really quickly in your real estate world, which we're going to get into. And I'm just so excited for all the things that you have going on with your new brokerage opening up. So I would love for you to just start with you and your Investor Warrior story, so that the listeners can get to know you, Shannon. Where did you start from? What was your background? And how did you get to this point in your real estate journey today?
Yeah, so actually my background, other than odds and ends jobs, I was a cosmetologist for almost 10 years. And that was kind of what I did. That was my life. That was everything. And then kind of what brought me to real estate was I hit this point in my career where, they say the glass ceiling, I couldn't grow anymore at that point. And I was just striving for more. And I felt like, there's only so many hours in a day and you can only work 7 days a week. And, there's a point where you're just like, is this it? Is this the top? Is this as far as I go? Is this what I do for the rest of my life? And, when you work that much, you miss out on a lot of just time that you could be spending with your kids and your family. And so that was kind of what brought me into real estate, was the thought that there's this other world that you might actually be able to be involved in, that you could have the time to live your actual life outside of working. And so that's kind of what brought me into real estate.
Yeah. I, at one point, wanted to go into cosmetology as like a side gig because I worked at Ulta in college and I was used to do people's makeup. And it was fun, but it was a lot of work. You're on your feet all day long. You're bending over people. It's a physically challenging job. But I did it for a little while in college. So I was always the one to do our makeup before we went out, and it was fun. But yeah, I could see as a career, it could be hard and challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things about the salon that I do miss, those connections and those people. And I loved what I did there. It wasn't that I didn't like it. That's not why I got out of it, but yeah.
Yeah. And you were doing this all too. You're a mom.
Yes.
So you were doing this as you were single mom for a little while, right?
Yeah. Off and on throughout, but it's tricky, and you want to be present with your kids, especially, you don't want to miss those things, but yeah.
And then, so you went from, what was that shift? How did you start in real estate from doing makeup to jumping into the world of real estate? Because that's quite a big shift.
It is, but I also think it really isn't at the same time. You're in the business of people, right?
Yeah.
I would say 50% of doing hair and eyelashes is if you can actually do hair and eyelashes, and the other 50% is if you can build those connections. It's the same thing in real estate. It's can you do the job? Okay, but do people want to work with you? That's the other part of it. And so it's very similar. The shift, a lot of my clients in real estate were in art and have been my clients in the salon too. And so it just kind of translates over. So, but I did both for a long time too.
Yeah. And then, so you started out as a sales associate, and you didn't do that for very long until you became just recently opened your own brokerage. Is that?
Yeah, about 2 years. So that's
2 years?
Three.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was pretty quick. I loved it, but it's always the same thing with me. I'm like, what else? What else can I, you know what I mean? I love this, but there's got to be more. There's got to be more growth,
Right.
So, yeah.
And so you just had an opening of your new brokerage, which, by the way, I love the name of your brokerage. How do you pronounce it?
It's Meraki Real Estate, and it's it means to put a piece of yourself into what you do, soul, creativity, and love. Like, I just feel like it's encompasses like what I want to build here. So.
Yeah, and so you had your grand opening 2 weeks ago, and I saw the pictures on Facebook. So you're in Idaho, so I wasn't there, but I saw it on Facebook, and it's a beautiful office. You guys have a beautiful website. I was really impressed when I went on there. So tell me, since you started this brokerage, like number one is, what were the challenges that you had to go through going from sales associate to brokerage to building your own brokerage? And what are some of the things that you've learned in like these 2 weeks that you've been open?
Gosh, so many challenges. I guess the biggest one is just the fear of doing something that you don't know. Like, you know what I mean? That's the classes. I started taking classes a year ago in March for my broker's license during shutdown, as I was like, well, what am I going to do with these 2 weeks that I can't be working in the salon at the time? And so I started going to school to get my broker's license, and that was a challenge all in itself. The broker's test is a lot different than the sales associate test. So all of that studying while working real estate and working in the salon was, it was tricky for sure. And then essentially we did a full remodel on the building, which was also challenging, doing all those things at once. After I did.
You're talking about the building that you have the brokerage in?
Yes. Yeah.
Is this a building that you own, or are you leasing?
No. So it's just a rental for now. But yeah, so we've got it for a couple years with the option of 3, and I can sublease it if we end up buying something before then. So, but I wanted a single tenant building, and there's not that many around that you don't have to share with other renters. And so this one needed a lot of love. So that was a challenge too. That was the first, I would say, trim, paint, flooring, decor, all of it, filling holes, and all that stuff too. While working also was tricky, but we got it done, and it's such a good feeling to have it just be yours, just exactly how you want it. So
yeah, and you already have a small team. So I was on your website, got to know the people who are already working for you. It seems like you guys have a great little team already in place. How did you build that team?
Well, that's a funny question. It's kind of like everything just happened all at once. And actually the reason that I was jumped on getting a building was because once I had my broker's license, my intention was just to sit pretty with it, be a sales or a associate broker for a while, and just kind of maybe get my feet under me and learn some things instead of just jumping right in. And just kind of do it at my own pace, so that I had all of these things that were it was just happening. It was like, build it and they will come kind of thing. You know what I mean? My transaction coordinator, she's incredible. She's just my right arm. She's amazing. But she actually reached out to me, and she was like, hey, so and I had my broker's license, and I I had a few people reaching out to me like, what are you going to do with this? You know, are you going to start something? Are we going to like, you know, I'm interested in what you've got going on. What are you doing? And so I had this stuff kind of coming down the pipe that was like, maybe you need a space to put these people in, you know? And so it was kind of in the back of my mind. And then my transaction coordinator reached out to me and she was like, hey, I've been doing transaction coordinating for somebody, but she's kind of switching gears into commercial, and I'm looking to kind of maybe take on some more agents that, you know, are doing, you know, more residential or kind of more of a sphere of people. Do you know anybody that needs a transaction coordinator? And I was like, that's weird. We should have lunch. So we sat down and I kind of told her what I had going on, and you know, I have quite a few people who are potentially coming on shortly. You know, it's never over till it's over, but I kind of gave her the idea of what we had going on and the interest that we had in building this thing. And she was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of this. I'm so excited. Like, so she ended up actually quitting her full-time other job too, to just come on, and she's been amazing. So and then Rick's our other agent that's here. Him and I started dating in November, and we were both at the other brokerage and together. And then, I don't know, I had this dream, and he's the first one to encourage me to just run with it. So, he actually didn't come on as an agent until I think beginning of April.
Yeah.
But he was, I mean, just so amazing in this full remodel too. I mean, he's 12-hour days. We leave at midnight because we were still standing board. I mean, he's built every single desk in here. We built all the desks to fit the room so we could make things out of the space. Yeah, so I mean, he's been amazing. But yeah, he's on here. And then my sister, actually, she was another person that was kind of reaching out to me before I got a space, and she was interested in getting involved in real estate, but didn't really know how she wanted to get involved. And so I had talked to her about maybe being our transaction coordinator. This was a while back. And so this was before Krista had come on. And she was like, yeah, maybe, you know, I'm gonna think about it. And then the day before Krista got a hold of me asking if I was looking for a transaction coordinator, my sister was like, I don't think that's the part of real estate I want to be in. I want to be an agent. So I don't want to be a transaction coordinator. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, absolutely. Like, go be an agent. Let's, you know what I mean? Let's do that instead. And then the next day, Krista texted me. I was just curious if you knew anybody looking for a transaction coordinator. I'm like, weird. It's weird how it's all just kind of fallen into place. Like, goosebumps, you know? It's just the way that everything just has worked out like it was meant to be.
Yeah. It's kind of like combination of family, friends, and divine intervention.
Exactly. Start you hop on the train and people hop on with you, and that's exciting, and it's been really fun. And my sister actually passed her state test yesterday, so she has to pass her national, and then she'll be done. So that's exciting.
But I don't know, based on your story, because I got to know you a few months ago and got to hear your whole story from the time you were 15 up until now, and the changes that you've made and the things that you've just kind of dove into. Kind of sounds like you always have that like divine intervention in your life, like things just kind of come together and work out. And I think that that's so important to keep in mind when we're starting these like big ventures. You know, if someone is in a different industry, like cosmetology, or like me, I was in the medical field, had nothing to do with real estate, but just had this calling to do something bigger and better in my life and got into real estate. It's like things just kind of lined up because you have that passion and that drive and faith that things are going to come together. And I don't know, for me, they always have, like, the right people have come into my life at the right time. The right things have happened, even though they seemed like challenges at the time, or they seemed like why is this happening? It all happened for a reason. And it just seems like that has been the case with all of the different changes that you've made in your life, because you've had a lot of major life events.
Yeah, for sure. And I think trusting that when those things happen and you just got to dive into it has been, something that I've had to learn for sure. Because there's been times that I fought that really hard, but I mean, the best opportunities come at the worst times. That's what they say, right? So just jump in and hold on.
Yeah. And you said something the other day that I think it was on a call that we had with your son, which was really sweet because he's 14.
Yes. Yeah.
And he seems so proud of you. And God, it's so crazy when you have kids or little people watching you, how much more you want to work harder because you know that they're watching. Someone's always watching. And what is it that he said?
Was it on I think we were leaving the office. Was that on the phone call the other day?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's funny, they're kids' interpretations of what an entrepreneur actually looks like, right? So since he was 1 year old, I was working for myself in a salon, so I've never had a paycheck in a long time. And so yeah, we were headed home from the office, and I think it was like right before the grand opening or something. And he was like, "So Mom, you really did it. You're really an entrepreneur." And I was like, "Oh, no? Oh, okay. So, okay, thank you." But yeah, he's super excited. He's super proud. He's been just such a inspiration to just keep going with all of this too. He's been helping me with Instagram gifts for the company and making, personalized hats and jackets and stuff online that he's like, "Mom, what do you think of this design?" And he's really into the design side of it and the marketing side, which is helpful to me because it also pushes me to learn that side of it. So
yeah, that's cool. So our 17-year-old does a lot of our YouTube channel, and he knows way more about it now than I do. And it's interesting because when he was editing these videos and getting them up there, and he would be like overlaying different things and doing different angles with the camera, we had a few people reach out. They didn't, they were like, "This is a great video, but who does your editing? Because this is great editing." And I'm like, our 17-year-old does it. And I told him, I was like, "Adrian, you're getting a lot of attention here on the YouTube channel. Like, people really like what you're doing. And, you never know, this could turn into something that you really enjoy." And so he had this course in high school. I think it was this professional development course, and you had to put what it is that you are thinking about being when you grow up. And there wasn't anything business related on there. It was a lot of trades and jobs. And so on there was like other, and he put other, and he put entrepreneur. And his teacher was like, "Oh," he's like, "I don't get a lot of kids that check that box and put entrepreneur. That's great." And he's like, "Where did this come from?" And so, Adrian told him that his parents have always been entrepreneurs, and that's what he's used to, and that's what he thinks he would like to go into. And it was really rewarding for Howie and I to see like, oh, he's paying attention, because sometimes we think that they're not. We're like, oh, he's paying attention to like what we're doing, and he sees what kind of life we're building, and that's making an impact. And it was nice to see.
No, it definitely is. And I think it's been the same kind of transition for my son, for Landon, to kind of watch all of this happen and watch me change careers and watch, the different avenues that you can have in your life. And he's also the same. I mean, he's already talking about the green screen that he wants in his room, and he's like, he likes to, put these videos together and these graphics, and they move and they do all this cool stuff. And I don't know how to do that. So I'm always like, "Show me how you did that. Like what just happened?" And they're so much smarter than we are, which is cool. But it's interesting to watch him transition, because 2 years ago, his plan, he's like, "Mom, I'm going to Stanford. Like, that's it. I'm going to Stanford. That's my end all be all. That's my dream." I'm like, "Let's do it. If that's what you want to do, like, let's go to Stanford." And he wants to be a mechanical engineer. But I would say within the last year, as he's watched me in real estate and watched this whole transition happen. He's like, I don't know about college, Mom. Like maybe I should just, start helping you at the office, and then, I could do your video edits and I could do this stuff. And then, maybe I could just get into real estate instead. And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, you can do whatever you want, but it's interesting how you go from mechanical engineer to watching this transition in my life. And now he's like, I don't know, maybe I want to be an entrepreneur instead, and it just opens up possibilities for them when they watch me do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he probably wouldn't have had that vision had it not been for you taking this big leap of faith and opening up this brokerage, and him seeing you put all this work and time and energy, but all this love into it. And they see what it can be, what it can become. And, Adrian has also expressed, wanting to go to college. All of my kids talk about going to college, and I went to college. I took the very traditional path at first. And so I'm always like, if that's what you want to do it, because entrepreneurship and building a business from scratch is not for everyone, right? You have to have a lot of passion for it, because I'm sure there are days in your week where you're like, damn it, this is a hard week.
Clock in and clock out. Like I'm sometimes like, oh man, when you're like working at 10:30 at night because you love it and you aren't ready to be done with it, but then you're so exhausted that you're like, man, it'd be so interesting to just clock into work and then clock out of work. And I haven't done that in a long time. And so it's an interesting thought when you aren't, you don't think like that,
I think I would enjoy it for like a day.
Yeah.
And then
that's it.
I'm like, okay, this is good now.
And be building a side hustle when you got off that day.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, this just turned into another business. But right. I don't know. It's interesting because for me, once I got into business, being a business owner and being my own boss and setting my own schedule, even though that schedule can be really intense sometimes, some days I'm like one thing to the next. I don't know that I could ever look back and go back to what I was doing before, because I now know the freedom of setting my own schedule. I now know the freedom of going on vacation when I want to go, because I can take my work with me. And to me, I don't know, like work has become life and life has become work, and it's all intermingled. I hang out with my kids while I'm thinking of business and vice versa. My husband and I will go out on date night and we'll talk about business, not because we feel like we have to, but because that's our life and we get excited about it.
You're passionate about it. And that's something that you both love, and you love it together. And I think that's so cool to be able to, it was the same thing. I mean, my sister was testing yesterday and she has a 1-year-old, and she's like, hey, we have this joke that I don't have a job now because I don't have to be anywhere at any time, so we just tell everybody I don't have a job. So she's like, hey, so since you don't have a job now, can you watch Weston while I go take this test? And I was of course, excited about it. And he's walking around. I don't know if you saw my post, but he's walking around with my lockbox while I'm getting this listing ready, this little 1-year-old. And I'm like, what a cool life. Like, what a cool life that I'm able to spend time with him while I'm getting a listing ready. And you know what I mean? And you can intermingle your family time with your passion and what you love to do, which is your job or not job, depending.
I love how she says now that you don't have a job.
That's a joke. I went to Ace Hardware the other day, and this guy was talking to me. It was when we were doing the remodel, and we're spending 12 hours in here switching out of paint covered clothes into dress clothes so we can go to a showing, and then coming back, changing back into paint clothes so that we can, doing all this stuff at the same time. And I went in there with my paint clothes on and my hair's in a bun, and he was talking to me about how it was Tuesday for 10 minutes or something. He was like, yeah, on this Tuesday, we're gonna, since it's Tuesday. And then at the end of the conversation, he's like, it's not Tuesday, right? And I was like, no, I had no idea that it wasn't Tuesday.
Oh, you were the one saying it was Tuesday.
And his comment was, yeah, I remember when I didn't have a job. And I was like,
So he thought you were like home painting because you don't have a job.
I don't have a job. So I was just laughing. So it's been this ongoing joke that now that I don't have a job.
Right.
So, yeah.
And now you get to be the cool aunt who gets to hang out.
I love it. It's been so fun. Yeah. So nice to be able to do both at the same time.
Yeah. And do you invest in real estate as well as doing the brokerage now?
So I would like to be. That's kind of the direction that I'm headed in my, other branch of not having a job is we're just about to drop. No, we just did. My phone should start ringing any day. We just sent out 1,800 letters. So we're trying to acquire some investment properties as well as the sales side of real estate too. But yeah, definitely that's something that I'm getting back into again. So
yeah, that's really cool. So basically you're going to be wearing two hats, the brokerage hat and the investor hat.
Yes.
Which will just really bring you more leads because you can have the ability to do both. And it was Greg who said the other day, you always have that easy button, right? Like if you can't make a deal work for you and the homeowner with purchasing it, you always have the option of listing it for them if that's what they really want to do. And so it can really work really well having both the license and the ability to purchase the home from them.
Yeah, and actually, so Rick and I have been, he's much better about the bird letters than I have been, but we've been able to, even through this last remodel and everything, he's been sending out these bird letters. And so I end up going with him because we actually, there's something about having a girl with a guy that softens it. When we did that event, if a guy goes by himself and asks for something, it feels a little bit more aggressive. So I've been going with him on his calls, and we've been able to put together, if it wasn't something that he wanted to invest in or something that he wanted to purchase, we would kind of take it, and I had a buyer for it. And so we were able to backdoor that situation where I can find something for my clients if he doesn't want to purchase it. And so it's worked out really well. We've put a few deals together that way. And yeah, like you said, the easy button, if you can't get them in your parameters, or, you're not able to offer them something that they want, then you have this other thing to do. And that's worked out really well.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up too, because my husband and I work a lot together now. It used to be just me going out and talking to homeowners, but recently now he's starting to help more on this side of the business. And some people, they just relate more to women, even if they're a man or a woman, and then vice versa, they're going to relate more to a man. And you can usually tell that from the first couple of minutes of talking to it. So my husband and I, when we go in, we're already kind of figuring out, okay, who's this person going to relate to more? And it's interesting because we've been putting a picture of our family on our letters, and we've been getting a really great response to it. We put a picture of him and I and the kids on it, so people see hey, we're a family owned and operated company. We're not this big conglomerate, where you don't know who you're going to be talking to one day after the next, like some of these bigger companies. It's just me and him.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think it's definitely helped. I would say I've done bird letters by myself before too. And I don't know if it's that reassurance too of having somebody there that you going into this space where you don't know really what you're walking into when you walk through the front door, right? You don't know.
Yeah.
I've done this by myself before, and there is that little bit of you're unsure when you're going in by yourself. I don't know what I'm going to be walking into. And so having that person, even, like you said, one of us will connect with somebody because we have differing personalities too. So that's kind of nice, but also just having that support that that you feel safe. And so I think that I have more confidence going into that, having him there, just knowing that I'm in a position where I'm not going to be in danger too. So.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you bring this up because I talk to a lot of women who have this question, is the safety question. And we had gone to a Tony Robbins event. a few years ago, and I remember, I think we were on maybe the relationship day where he really dives deep into, I'm going to say male female relationships, whether it's hetero or homo, or but it's male energy, female energy relationships. And he asked the question, if you're a woman in the audience, raise your hand if you have felt unsafe at any point in your day in the last 30 days. You just had a feeling of where your safety was compromised. And like 90% of the women raised their hand. Even the tough women, right? Even myself, who, I'm not walking around scared all the time, but yeah, in the last 30 days, I have been in a situation where I didn't necessarily feel safe. And then he asked that same question to men, and it was like, a fraction of the hands went up. Not a lot of men raised their hands. And we talked about how, I think a lot of the men were, because this was a big group, maybe a couple thousand people in the room. Actually, I think it was one of his bigger events, maybe like 10,000 people in the room. And the men, I think a lot of them were really surprised at how many women raised their hand to that question. Like, really? You haven't felt safe on any one particular occasion in the last 30 days? And it's just because when you're a woman, when you're walking into these situations, you just have that something in the back of your head that says, maybe I shouldn't be here. You're questioning things, or you're playing the what if game. Or for me, like, I've always had a buddy system where if I'm going into a house and it's just me and I can't bring someone, I have someone calling me 15 minutes later just to make sure things are okay. Like, that's how I've always operated. And I do get this question a lot with women who want to go into real estate or want to go into investing. What about like safety? Like, do you feel comfortable going into houses by yourself? And my answer is no, not always. In fact, there have been some houses that I haven't gone into because my feminine intuition kicked in and I was like, there's something about this where I just don't feel okay with it. And I met the homeowner on the doorstep and we walked the exterior, but I did not go into that house. There was just something about it. And at that point, I made a second meeting and had someone come with me. But I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I think a lot of women, I don't know if it's that they don't want to talk about this because we want to think that we're tough and that we can handle all situations. But there's that safety aspect that comes into play where you do have to be safe if you're a woman going into this business.
For sure. And I'm in Idaho, and everybody has a gun here, and everybody, it's concealed carry is fine here in Idaho. And I, in those situations where, I'm by myself going into a situation, I always do try to carry, and just for my own safety and whatnot. But there's still, like, even with that, a lot of times in Idaho, when I'm going out to land, I've met people up by Canada, in the middle of nowhere, like actually nowhere, bordered on 3 sides by Forest Service land, where only a 4Runner is going to go. And, I'm meeting these people for the first time by myself, no cell phone service. I mean, there's been situations where I'm like, I've left and I've been like, wow, I should not have done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, every situation has been, it was a joke at the last office that I was just trying to see what kind of a risky situation I could be in, because I was doing all this stuff by myself, which at the time that was the option. I mean, you're not going to be able to call somebody and be like, hey, in 10 minutes, do you want to go for a 2-hour drive to the middle of nowhere to meet some strangers? Like, nobody can just drop what they're doing and do that. So I'm like, well, this is my job. This is what I have to do. So you take all the precautions that you can, but there's still situations you walk away from and you're like, I'm glad I'm alive. Like, because that's scary. So yeah, I think that is part of it. And being on the outskirts in those, towns where you don't even have cell phone service for somebody to call you 15 minutes in, you have to be a little cautious. But
yeah, I used to joke that our previous assistant, he did everything for us. And he's gone on since now to become an agent. I used to tell people that he was assistant, acquisition manager, driving for dollars, and bodyguard. It's like anytime I felt like I needed just another person there, I would bring him along just to have that extra person, whether he was in the car hanging out or came in with me. And it was just kind of this, funny thing. I'm like, okay, today you got to be bodyguard. You're coming with me. But I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's similar situation. She's in an area in Florida where you get a lot of rural land. You get a lot of houses that are out in the middle of nowhere. And she does carry with her. She's like, Carrie, I've been in houses where I've, carried a weapon, and I had my mace and I had my knife, and I was still feeling like I should not be in this house. And because we were talking about putting together a virtual acquisition system for acquiring properties virtually, where you don't have to go see these homes and you don't have to be there physically to meet the homeowners, which can be done in our world, especially with all the technology that we have now. You don't always have to go and meet physically with these homeowners, especially if you feel like it's not someplace you would want to go by yourself and you don't have anyone to go with you.
There's been a couple of situations for sure. I'm like, man, that was risky.
You've spent 20 or 7 lives.
Yeah, exactly. But but we do have that intuition too. And so I think that kind of, like you said, within the first few minutes, you can kind of get a pretty good feel of if you should be there or not. And so, that intuition helps a lot too, I think.
Yeah. So what is your vision? I mean, for this brokerage, I'm curious, what are you envisioning?
So as far as like growth, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Just where do you see this going?
I really do think that we're going to outgrow this building before our lease is up, which is exciting. Yeah. So from that point, as long as I can keep the quality of people, it was interesting. I was listening to your podcast with Brittany Thompson, and she was talking about doing a personality test. And I thought that was so interesting to do with your team, like just to kind of see where everybody vibes. But I guess my point is that I want to make sure that it's a very healthy, good working relationship with everybody in the office. And I want to make sure that remains. But as far as, as long as we can stay within that, I'm definitely not afraid of growth. And I see it growing pretty rapidly.
Yeah. So. Yeah. The personality tests are interesting because it's really about putting the right people in the right seats, because you can have the right people in the wrong seat and vice versa when you're growing, especially when you're growing rapidly and you're making decisions quickly. I think that the personality test really helps to determine whether that person is the right person for the job that you're seeking, number one, and how are they going to be working with the people who are currently there, because you've got different personalities who operate differently, who communicate differently, who work differently, where one person can be offended by something someone says and the other person not at all, because it's just their personality. I went to an event where the speaker was trained in this testing. I forget which one he was trained in, but we all took a personality test, and it was really insightful to me into how I operate, because I realize why I do some of the things that I do based on the personality test, and why sometimes me and my husband will butt heads in business and even in, our relationship. Why is it that we are clashing? Because we're business partners. And so we're operating in an office as business partners. And I realized why that was based on my personality test and where I was on the chart and where he was on the chart. And it just made sense. And when you're aware of it, then you can take the other person's personality and the way they operate into consideration. You can modify how you're communicating or the things that you're doing when you're working with that person. And it's interesting because the speaker, he is also a real estate coach. He said that every student he works with, he makes them take the personality test because he wants to know how he's going to communicate with them to be the most effective for them as a coach.
Right. And I think that's huge in understanding maybe why people do the things that they do, or, you know, how they do the things that they do. And I think it's definitely an interesting, like I'm going to find a good one today, because I feel like that's very important on how you even interact with the people inside your office. Like, yeah, like you said, exactly. Like the reason you do the things that you do is because, you know, this, and understanding that you're going to be a better mentor for them, and they're going to be, you know, more apt to soak in what you're saying because you're speaking to them in the language that they speak. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like that's very interesting and important, and I think something that you should do probably pretty regularly, especially if you're growing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're growing, and especially if you're growing quickly, which it sounds like you guys are, which is really, really exciting. But when you grow quickly, that's sometimes when you can run into the biggest challenges because it's happening so fast. Yeah. So very cool. I think, well, we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
Between woman safety and personality testing and brokerages and real estate agents and investing. So this was awesome. Yeah. What's the one thing, if you could leave with the listeners, that you have learned over these last 3 years of getting into real estate, transitioning from cosmetology to sales associate to opening up your own brokerage?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just, you know, that your belief system and what you believe is possible is really what's possible for you, and that the sky is actually the limit in real estate. Like that's what I love about real estate, is that there really is so many avenues where you can branch out in real estate within the same industry, and also you can take it as far as you want. I mean, the options are endless in real estate. And I think whether it's investing or sales or being a broker or, you know, any of those avenues, wherever you want to go with it, there's just so much opportunity. And, you know, it's just whether or not you believe that you are capable of that or not. So.
Cool. Awesome. Where can people find you or connect with you if they have any questions or want to talk?
Yeah, so my personal phone number is 208-691-9466. You can reach me there almost anytime, day or night.
Now that you don't have a job.
Now that I don't have a job, you guys can my email is Shannon, SHANNON at Meraki, MERAKIRE.net. And then my website is ownmerakirealestate.com. So any of those places you can find me and reach me if you have any questions.
Yeah, and I would really, guys, encourage you to check out Shannon's website. It's really nicely done. It's very elegant, but it's very simple, but it tells the story of who you guys are and what you're trying to do. I just loved it. So I'd really encourage you all to go on there and just check out her website for her brokerage. Did a great job.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shannon, for coming on. This was fun.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Remember, guys, you are only one deal away. We'll see you on the next episode.